Hi all, good morning. So are you getting my voice, all of you, and as well as my screen? Yes. Okay. So the thing is, as you know that, so basically we are struck we have stuck with the SSL certificate, right? So just I already messaged them, so but I did not get any response from them till now. Okay. So today I will check it once again with them, maybe around our time, maybe some 1 a.m. or maybe some 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. like that. So then they are live basically. So our timings according to IST, basically they are not available. So let me check it. Okay, so if something is works with them, I mean that SSL team. So uh, we will have tomorrow maybe some 2 to 3 hour session, so that we're going to complete SSL termination, the respective concept, right? So timings will be same time 8:30. Okay. So in between today, we're going to discuss about a new concept that is nothing but a data disks. Okay. So data disks, basically this concept. I mean, we need to implement this concept both Windows point of view and as well as Linux. Okay. So today we mostly going to complete and I think on Windows. So if Linux is not completed today, tomorrow we'll complete the same. Okay, so once this data disks related to Linux machine is done, so then we're going to discuss about this SSL concept. So if possible, once again we're going to discuss from the beginning. Okay, so today we're going to discuss about data disks. So what is the data disk? Any of your idea? What is data disks? Basically, this data disks is nothing but just to store some data, irrespective of C drive. Okay, so if you go for whenever if you are installing some software, whether it is a new laptop or your existing laptop, so once you're having a option called as a format, right? So in that, so we're going to allocate some GB for the respective disks. So except C drive, so basically we're having some D or maybe some EF drives will be there, right? Irrespective of C drive, if you go for any other disks, so just you're going to store some data, right? So if mostly in C drive, so it is related to some operating system or it related to some whenever if you're installing some new softwares in your respective laptop, mostly it is pointing to by default to C drive. Okay, so irrespective of C drive, what are the drives which you are having within your respective laptop, that the drives or that the data disks, that thing what we are calling as a data disk simply. So here data disks is nothing but except C drive, the remaining drives in which we are having, that is nothing but what we are calling as a data disks here. Okay, so in which we are storing the data, that is except C drive, and remaining disks are related to data disks. I mean, while configuring operating system. Okay. So now, how to create data disks in Windows and Linux virtual machines. okay, how to create data disks in Windows and Linux virtual machines here basically. Okay, so as usual, so first of all we need to create create a resource group. So and then followed by some virtual network and subnetwork. Okay, and we need to create some virtual machine. So currently here, initially we're going with some Windows, and then we can go for Linux basically. Okay, so go to this portal.azure.com and try to log into with your credentials, respective credentials. Okay, so go to resource group, click on create. So provide some name, STS or maybe some STS. Next tags, next review and create. Finally click on create. So then you need to create some virtual network. Right? Click on create. Select the whatever the resource group which you have created. Azure test hyphen vnet. Next IP address. Provide some IP address here. /16. Add subnet. Click on add. So next security. Next tags. Next review and create. Finally click on create. So it is created, right? Virtual network is created basically. So now we need to create some virtual machine. Click on create. Azure test. So here, so Windows machine, something like this. Okay, so here we need to select some Windows. Just this, guys. So don't go with B1, go with B2, because whenever if you're going with B1, right, so it is not loading some features within that respective virtual machine basically. It is taking too much time to load. Go with B2. So provide username and password. So next, disks. Go with standard SSD. So go to data disks here. Okay, within this disks option of this respective virtual machine, I mean while creating, so go to data disks option, right? Create and attach a new disk. So you can go with some Windows machine, so you can give whatever the name you want basically. Okay, so source type, so non-empty disks. Okay, and the size 1024 GB. So if you want, you can change the size as well. So change size, maybe I'm going with some 8 GB. Okay, so this 8 GB is nothing but a not a RAM, so it is a data disk size basically. So it depends how much space, how much data disk space you want, you can choose it basically. Okay, so I have gone for some 8 GB. Okay, so then click on OK. Okay, so basically here previously okay, okay, so previously we don't have this much of things. Now they have added here. Previously just if you click on OK, so that it will go for networking. Now it is they are adding within this data disks option. Okay, fine. So now just click on next networking, next management, click on disable, next advanced, next tags, next review and create. Finally click on create. Finally click on create. So it is created, right? So go to this virtual machines, click on what are the virtual machines which are created. So just go for networking. So add your security role or inbound port rule. So allow all the ports. Click on add. So it is created, right? Okay. So then try to log into this virtual machine by using RT. Click on connect. So provide the username and password. Click on OK. Click on S. Okay. So now if you go to this data disks, right? So basically if you observe, we are having some C is there and one more thing is D is there, right? So we have added a one more disk with 8 GB. So basically whenever if you're trying to create some Windows virtual machine, so mostly you're going to get some two disks. One is C and this D is nothing but what we're calling as a data disk, right? And if you observe while creating this virtual machine, so within this disks option, so we have added a one more disks. I mean, so we need some extra disk for this respective virtual machine. So that is the reason we have created, right, with size as 8 GB basically. But here if you observe, we are unable to see that specific disk, right? So for this, so what we need to do is go to this start button and type disk. Okay. So here you have got some disk cleanup and some settings, these things, right? So for this, go to create and format hard disk partitions. Click on it basically. Must install. See here, if you observe, so one is disk 0, that is nothing but how much space 126. So this is the thing, nothing but a C drive, right? Now disk 1, this is around 8 GB, that is also If you observe this here, they are displaying some online, so which is available currently. Okay, so this is 8 GB. Okay, so there is nothing but D drive. They have given some name as a temporary storage. So and this is a Windows C, something they have given, right? So we have created one more disk. There is nothing but a disk 2, right? Status. So if you observe, not initialized and even some unknown, something like this, right? So right click here, basically click on initialize disk. Okay, click on initialize disks, click on OK. See here, now if you observe, the status is online, still it is unallocated, right? So one more time, right click on new simple volume, click on next, click on next, 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 finish. So they are given some name as a new volume F, right? So if you observe here, here we are having one more disk with new volume as F. Okay, so if you observe these things, basically what we have done while creating virtual machine itself, we are trying to add some we are trying to add a one more data disk with some space. So I have taken some 8 GB. So based upon your requirement, you can allocate some space, whatever the space you want, basically, right? So now here, let us assume after creating virtual machine. Okay, so currently let us assume I am utilizing this virtual machine. So I require a one more data disk, maybe some with 1 TB or maybe some 8 GB 8 GB space, or maybe some 10 GB or 120 GB, something like this. Okay, after creating virtual machine, not before creating. So before, I mean, or otherwise while creating virtual machine, how to add some new data disk while creating, right? So here my requirement is after creating. So I already created some virtual machine. So now I want to add a one more data disk with the existing virtual machine. So for this, what we need to do is, so go to whatever the virtual machine which you have created. So go to settings. Okay, go to disks. See here, create and attach a new disk, basically create and attach new disk. So here you can give some name if you want. Okay, what are the name? So maybe I'm giving some one. Okay, so maybe I'm giving some 10 GB RAM, sorry, 10 GB space, not RAM. Click on save. So it is created, right, basically. So now if you go to just refresh it here, still it is not available. Same process we need to repeat. So go to and type, go to start button, type some disk. So create and format hard disk partitions. Here now it is one more disk which is not initialized. So just right click, initialize disk, click on OK, online now. Okay, unallocated. Once again right click here, click on new simple volume, next, 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 finally click on finish. Okay, so now it is online basically. See here. So this is the one more data disk with the size as a 10 GB. Okay, so this is the way, I mean, creating data disk while creating a virtual machine. So or otherwise, after once your virtual machine is already created, so let us assume if it has a Windows operating system, so then if you want to add some new data disks, right, for this respect to virtual machine, whatever virtual machine which are created, so this is the process which we need to know. So just nothing but go to settings and go to disks. This is after creating virtual machine basically. Okay, any doubts here? Any of you? Hello? Are you getting my voice? Any doubts?
No doubt, sir.
Yeah, clear.
So this is nothing but a data disks, uh, I mean concept related to Windows virtual machine. But same thing, we're having some Linux machine as well. So, but here Linux machine, so if you want to access some Linux machine, so what is the software we are utilizing? Nothing but using putty basically, right? So but once if you log into respect to putty, there it is everything is a command base. So here Windows is everything is a nothing but what we can say that it is a GUI base. So here we don't have any commands. Simply by using some graphical user interface. So yes, you can right click and you can click on some options. We're going to get some pop-ups, right? So just you can click on next or finish. So simply it is going to add it at back end, and finally we're going to get some result at the front end basically. But it is not the case with Linux operating system. Not only Ubuntu, any flavors of the respect to operating system. So Linux is mostly it is everything is a command base. Windows simply you can remember it as it is a graphical user interface, which you already most of us we are familiar with. We only Windows operating system. Okay, if you're going with some Linux, same thing we need to implement. So I mean while creating virtual machines also, we need to go for disks option. There also just we need to go for one more thing called as a data disk. So there you can add this what are the disk you want, some name you can provide, and size, whatever the size you want. So you can provide the respective size and click on save. Okay, so same thing we can implement for Linux machine. So I'm not creating any resource to virtual network. Same thing I'm utilizing. So create virtual machine. Go to resource group. So you can use some Linux machine one. So go with Ubuntu. Go with password. Next disks. Go with standard SSD. So here in this data disk option, create and attach a new disk. Okay, so then I given some by default name as a Linux machine 1 underscore data disk underscore 0 something. Okay, so here go with size, I'm going with 8 GB. Click on OK. So next networking. So you can select the respective virtual network and sub network here. Next management. click on disable, next advanced, next tags, next review and create. Finally click on create. So it is created, right? Go to this virtual machines, click on Linux machine 1, go to networking, add some inbound port rule or security rule. Click on add. So just try to access this virtual machine by using putty. Click on open. Click on accept. So provide the username and password. So go to root user. So that is sudo space su space hyphen. So now if you want to know this respect to data disks within this Linux virtual machine, whatever the virtual machine which I have created. So here we're having a predefined command called as a lsblk. Okay, list of blocks. Okay, so just click on enter. See here, if you observe, we have taken how much space? 8 GB, right? Basically. So here if you find some mount part option, so it is already allocated basically. That is the intention. Okay. So yeah, this is basically this is allocated, and this is also. So if you observe otherwise, this STA is a main folder. This STA1 is nothing but a, you can assume it as a subfolder. Okay. So if you're having a structure like this, so then we can say that it is allocated, or this it is having some what we call data disk with some space. Okay. So if you observe in Windows point of view, you're having some online, and after that allocation, some status you have got it, right? But here, if it is having within this mount point column, if it is having some slash mnt, or without having some empty, it is having something, right, with slash followed by some name. So then we can say that that data disk is online. Okay. So this one is online basically, and it is also having some subfolders. So just for simplicity to understand the concept simple, so it is also mount part. So means it is also having some data disk basically. Okay, which is online. So now if you observe this STC, right, STC. So when we have created 832, sorry, yes, 832, 0 and 8 GB, right, this is the thing, and 0 disk, and it does not have any mount part basically. Okay, it does not have any mount part. So that is the reason basically it is not allocated. Simply you can say that. So it is, I mean, basically if it is not allocated, Windows, what we are doing, we are going for typing some disk option, and we are going for create and format hard disk partition, these things we are implementing, right? But here currently it is not allocated. Okay, currently we are having only two data disks, simply you can say that. Okay. So this STC is not allocated basically. Okay. So now how to allocate this one? So here also we need to format the disk, but here we don't have any graphical user interface. We're having a command called as an fdisk. Okay, nothing but a format disk. Fdisk space maybe some dev slash st. It is stc, right? You can give some stp. Click on enter. So here, welcome to fdisk. Changes will remain in memory only until you decide to write them. Okay. Command for m for help. Click on new. So for that, click on type some n. Click on enter. Partition number 213 default 2. Click on enter. Click on enter. Click on what they are giving, value out of range. Type in partition number 213 default 2. First sector. Okay, so actually they have changed something. I need to check with. You really want to quit. Okay, so up to here it is correct basically. So then they have changed some first sector. These are the new things basically in Ubuntu point of view. So I need to check these things. I mean, I need to do R&D on these things. So I will do that and I will let you know. Okay. So basically these things we don't have. So just previously how it is behaved is how, I mean, how we are having is basically, so basically we need to after entering this command, right? So basically here we given some dev stb means, so this sub folder path here it is going to be commit. I mean, within this mount point column we're going to get this respect to path here basically. Okay, so that this whatever the data disk which I have created, I mean, while creating determination we have created some data disk, right? So that data disk is going to be mounted under this respective subfolder. That is the meaning here basically. So then you're going to get some command for command m for help. So once if you type some n, nothing but we are creating new partition disk or new data disk within this Linux operating system. So just you need to click on two enters so that these changes will be reflected. Basically, this is the thing what we are having basically. And once if these things done, so we need to create a one more command called as an file system. Okay, so by default each and every operating system, whether it is a Windows or a Linux, they're already having a inbuilt file system here. If you're going with some what we call Windows, basically we're having some NTFS. It is a one file system basically. And if you go for Linux point of view, we're having some file system as by default file systems as ext3 and ext4. These are the file systems which is related to the Linux operating system. But here, whenever if you're creating some new data disks within this Linux point of view, so we are unable to get by default file system. We're not able to get a default file system for the new data disk, which is not the same case in Windows. Windows by default, even once if you're creating new data disk, so it will create automatically by default. But it is not the case with Linux operating system. So we need to create a file system for the whatever the data disk which you have created. So that thing we're having a command called as an mkfs. Okay, mkfs dot ext4. Ext4 is nothing but a file system. It is one of the, I mean, simply we can say that it is one type of the file system. ext3 and ext4 are different file systems in Linux point of view. Once if you provide that respective command, the changes will be reflected and this data disk is attached for the respective virtual machine. This is the process which is basically we're having in Linux machine point of view. But now they have added some first sector. These things I need to check it once, and I will let you know. Okay. So any doubts? Any of you?
No, sure.
Not on Linux. Okay, Linux I need to
Yeah.
check it basically.